Welcome to the Behind the Bar podcast. Today we're joined by Jeremy. If you could just introduce yourself and say where you're from.
Yeah, certainly. Jeremy Scorer, please call me Jez. I'm from HIT Training, so I live in Nottingham and I work at HIT Training. So we're a national apprenticeship training provider specialising in hospitality, catering and brewer, amongst other sectors.
Perfect. And what's your position at HIT Training?
I'm the licensed trade director, so I look after, I oversee the hospitality sectors. I oversee some associated sectors as well, but my role is primarily to sort of spend time within the industry, within hospitality, particularly licensed trade, where my specialism is. I work very closely with sector membership organisations and trade bodies to keep abreast of the ever-changing sort of demands and opportunities that exist within this trade. Nice.
If you could tell us how you got involved with HIT Training, how long you've been there, and why you like HIT Training so much.
I'm a third-generation licensee, so publican born to licensee parents, above a pub called the Happy Man, actually, many years ago. My grandparents were publicans. We've got a family of sort of history in pubs, uncles, aunties, and certainly now brothers. I came out of the pub, which I ran successfully with my wife when the kids were young, back in sort of 2003. So after 20 odd years, sort of working multiple pubs in and around the Nottinghamshire area, I got into training and development. I joined HIT Training in 2014. 2017. And I've been there nearly 9 years in the role of academy principal and more recently licensed trade director. So I think it's sort of representation of having the love and the passion for the sector enables me and puts me in a very strong place to be able to develop, create and deliver training back to the industry.
And I guess being an ex-publican, you have that unique perspective now to develop and make those training and apprenticeship courses.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got a very sort of respectful history and experience of working pubs, albeit some years ago. But that enables me to sort of understand and keep abreast of some of the challenges, pitfalls, barriers and hurdles that they face on a day-to-day basis. That enables me to facilitate and develop sort of training and educational programs and outcomes to suit the many needs and requirements of the industry, ensuring that the training is flexible enough to work around sort of busy schedules, appropriate enough to assist with the development of the people, notwithstanding the sort of financial pressures and wage costs that are going through the roof. We strongly believe and advocate that apprenticeship training in particular is a very cost-effective way of developing, the sort of great and the good of the future, to be fair. So the pipeline of operators going forward.
So HIT Training, obviously training in the name, I know you do a lot of apprenticeship courses. Is it predominantly apprenticeship courses or do you also do training courses?
It's not exclusively apprenticeships. We are a training organisation. We deliver many sort of short, sharp, often accredited qualifications. We develop and deliver a lot of bespoke programs for organisations and customers and clients. But it's not unfair to say the majority of our business is aligned to apprenticeship provision. We're pretty much, it's not unfair to suggest we're experts in managing all the sort of wiring around apprenticeship funding and some of the challenges and some of the bureaucratic hurdles that are often the misconception that sort of prevents people to engaging on apprenticeship programs. That's where our expertise really does come to the fore. We can cut through all that fog and all that wiring, bust the myths, and are very successful in presenting an apprenticeship solution that makes a tangible, measurable difference to the businesses with whom we work.
And as experts around apprenticeships within hospitality is such a great way for young people and also people of many ages to get into the hospitality industry, to develop their career. Why is it so important that apprenticeships are widely accessible in the hospitality industry?
It's a fantastic, opportunity for people, new entrants to the industry at whatever age. You're dead right. It's not limited to to the younger age demographic. But it also really needs to be understood that apprenticeships can be for existing employees.
Yes.
Sort of staff and colleagues that have been in the business for for many years and have developed an amazing experience and and competency in the role. Apprenticeship can provide them that extra little bit of industry insight, that little bit of technical knowledge that can help their progression, within the organisation, within the pub, the bar, the brewery, the hotel. But it also, sort of impacts on the industry positively as well. So they've never been more important, and I would say that, but I'm saying that from a publican's point of view, because we have many examples of great stories and case studies of of individuals who were successful in their roles and very, very good at their particular jobs, yet aspired to do something more, to develop their own career, and aspired to be the next operators of the future. And apprenticeships can provide that structured, programmed sort of session of learnings that aligns to their job role, that affords them that opportunity, which perhaps historically they wouldn't have always have seen or grasped.
And obviously with apprenticeships, you have that, it's not that stereotypical learning environment. You're learning on the job while also doing some assessments. And it gives a chance to people who possibly don't do well in that old school environment.
Yeah, we celebrate, that an apprenticeship can be that opportunity for an individual who either hasn't necessarily excelled in mainstream education or has left school with having not really fulfilled their potential for many different reasons, and we can list those all afternoon. But it does provide them an opportunity and a platform to recognise their abilities. It identifies and very clearly sort of identifies their skill gaps, their learning styles, their learning preferences, and as you rightly say, learning takes place on the job. Earn as they learn is one of the phrases used forever in the world of apprenticeships, and it's never been so more appropriate. But what it does do, I think what it does effectively, it engages the apprentice in their own learning journey, but it also engages their employer and their team member or their team leader in that same journey. So the business as a whole benefits from the program. I mean, that's something that I, sort of yawp on about for forever and a day, that we are able to demonstrate in a very short period of time the tangible business benefits that an organisation will enjoy from engaging an apprenticeship strategy within their organisation. I say far too often that every operator, every publican, every licensee, every head chef, every head brewer, they are trainers in their own right. There's always a new tap to go on the bar, the new menu offer, the new service offer. But that training isn't always as structured and as coordinated as perhaps it could be, which it becomes when aligned with an apprenticeship strategy. So basically, you're inviting an external expert training organisation into your business to work with yourself to develop your people. And in that regard, it's proven to be a very successful program.
Before we jump into what changes there have been in apprenticeships, what do you think publicans or pub staff tend to get wrong about apprenticeships, like some myths that need to be busted?
Okay, here we go, another long list. Myths. The misconception that apprenticeships are just for the young. There are many incentives and a very appropriate support in developing young people as their first job, new career, new opportunity. Notwithstanding that, they're for all age groups. And then they're not just remedial tasks. Apprenticeship levels from foundations that we're going to enjoy in the next few months from levels 2 through to level 7. There's a program aligned to every role that someone can enjoy within this industry, from team member, supervisor, pub manager, head chef, to operational departmental manager, business development manager, through to senior leader. There are programs aligned to each job role. It is a misconception that they are an expensive program to deliver. I would argue that our expertise enables to sort of mitigate those costs, so it becomes a very affordable, very cost-effective program. The only myth I will not bust is that it doesn't take. There's no commitment from the employer.
Yeah.
Without the commitment from the employer, from the business owner, then the program's destined to fail. And I would argue if you're a good operator and you sort of respect the value of your team, your most important, most valuable, most expensive asset, why wouldn't you develop them anyway? So this adds structure, it adds process, it adds clearly defined outcomes to a learning journey that can map directly to a career pathway. So often we see in many sectors, hospitality is no different, the accidental manager, the manager that has been promoted to a position of supervisory responsibility or team responsibility because of fear of losing them to a competitor. Or you find that promotion, that progression of role because there's no one else available to join the business. Those accidental managers, as the industry is full of them, we appreciate, we applaud and their input, but they do require some level of sort of instruction or some educational reaffirmment so they can really embark on that next journey with a little more clarity and a little bit more vision, as opposed to what we see far too often in some of our more independent operators, dare I say.
Now going into current apprenticeships and the changes that have happened, we've already seen a few changes. There's been the switch from apprenticeship length, now that we can have shorter apprenticeship length. What does that mean, one, for publicans and two, for the apprentices themselves?
Okay, yeah, so you're dead right. The minimum length of stay, as an apprenticeship term that we would use, was historically 12 months.
Yeah.
That, an apprenticeship couldn't be completed or concluded within 12 months. That's recently changed and is now 8 months.
Yeah.
The impact that's had has been considerable, because you think of organisations that are very seasonal in their offer. We think of organisations where they have existing team members or existing colleagues that have a wealth of experience, but not an awful lot of sort of accreditation or accredited outcome to their role. So those shorter programs have been proven very successful. More importantly, and what we are finding is that organisations are talking to us now about clustering together apprenticeships. So not just looking at a level 2 or level 3 in its own particular period of program. They're looking to cluster a level 2 to a level 3. So you, as an aspiring sort of team member, are looking for that supervisory role. An 8-month level 2 team member program, then sort of tagged on to a level 3 supervisory program, can get you into a position of assistant manager, deputy manager, even general manager within a shorter period of time that would normally have taken you with historic timescales. And that's important because as a sector and as an industry, we're great at celebrating and progressing people quicker. I mean, the amount of 23, 24-year-olds I now know holding positions of supervisory responsibility in high-performing, high-yielding public houses and bars is remarkable. So why shouldn't the training be aligned and streamlined and fast-tracked, alongside that
We've spoken to a lot of apprentices and people who have won our Apprenticeship of the Year award who have done their apprenticeship and they're 22, 23 years old, and they're already a general manager of their pub. So it is very telling how these apprenticeships can fast track them to much higher positions within the sector. Moving on to the new changes that are coming in, what are the most important changes that publicans need to know and staff members need to know?
There's never been a better time for hospitality apprenticeships. Other sectors have had some funding and some content streamlined. Hospitality has been left in peace, so to speak. In fact, there's some very attractive incentives now that are targeting particularly SMEs and independent owner operators and the younger demographic for very genuine and honest reasons. There's a huge number, over 1 million young people not in education, employment or training. There's a lot of people with particular sort of learning needs and learning styles that aren't in employment, full stop. There's a massive shortfall of staff within hospitality, and there's the link. Hospitality, retail and similar sectors have historically been sort of praised and celebrated as being that sort of new opportunity, that first job for a lot of people. Let's not get too involved that's the historic label it continues to have, but it is that first platform that people find their chance to really sort of shine, develop their own particular skills, their listening skills, their communication skills, their confidence, all those fabulous little outcomes that we celebrate and still do now. And from those people entering the sector for the first time, we have the aspiring managers. We have those superstars that, as you suggested, at 22, 23 years of age are running multi-million-pound business operations. And what the apprenticeship manages to do is sort of really channel that enthusiasm. And I say each and every apprenticeship program is personal to the apprentice in question. The standards are still the same. The outcomes are a little different. However, the method of delivery is the unique point of difference that we need to celebrate within an apprenticeship program. I can talk to a pub operator, might be a licensee, there might be multiple operators, and identify their individuals through their awareness, and we'll do individual training plans for each and every one of those team members.
When you say it's personalised to each member,
Yep.
does that mean that an apprenticeship or the training provider will see how they work best, how they learn best, and then they will switch how they teach? Is that what you mean?
Absolutely. It's a blended mix of face-to-face learning, online learning, group workshops. We have a plethora of different delivery solutions that we can make available for the individual. To your point, we identify their aspirations, their desire to progress for their own development, their desire to progress within the organisation, the business they're in, their desire to progress within the sector in general is critically important. We also identify their particular learning styles. The initial assessments at the start of a programme are unapologetically robust, because that training plan, unique to the individual, needs to be agreed by the individual and by their mentor or their manager, because only then the path of learning makes a relevant sort of journey. And that to me is the element of work-based learning, particularly, that I think is underestimated and understated. Those where that program and that plan is clearly identified and followed, measured and reviewed along the way, with changes that take place mid-program, determined by the change in confidence or the change in aspirations or the changes in the job role that the individual's facing. That's the one of the critical elements and critical factors of apprenticeships that need celebrating. The flexibility, still ending up with the final goal where that supervisor graduates as a supervisor or graduates as a pub manager or graduates just as a blooming good team member. The journey is determined by the aspirations of
Yeah.
the individual and their organisation.
I think that's something that, I mean, I didn't know that you could make it that flexible. I knew apprenticeships were flexible in the sense of it's not that restrictive like a classroom. It's, you can have workshops or online based, but I didn't realize that it would be to the individual, changed to match them and what works with them, which I think is a big plus for anyone who might be a bit hesitant to do an apprenticeship.
And there are, we in further education or work-based learning, work-based education, apprenticeship programs can be, available through your local college.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not decrying the local colleges, some fabulous outlets out there and institutions out there. However, their program of learning is more structured, aligned to the individual leaving work and coming in to the college to undertake the program as determined and as scheduled by the group.
Mm-hmm.
Work-based learning, organisations such as HIT and ourselves, we take the learning to the place of work. So each and every program is personalised to the individual, the apprentice, the learner as we call them, and to the organisation in which they work. And that's the critical point of difference. The outcomes are celebrated the same. However, the journey can differ, determined by the the program. I'm a huge advocate. You talked about the changes in apprenticeships.
Yes.
And there's been some great reforms, particularly for SMEs and independent operators. There are financial incentives now that encourage organisations who haven't considered apprenticeship programs to engage in dialogue. There are financial incentives to bring people into your business as an apprentice. There are financial incentives to engage a member of your existing team on apprenticeship programs. Those incentives are determined by age, by outcome, by a number of different factors. We can go into a bit more depth, and I know BII are great advocates and are able to sort of share some of the content that we provide, which clarifies how those incentives are best paid. But the fact of the matter is, there's never been a better time for an independent pub, bar, restaurant, hotel, coffee shop, brewery to engage in apprenticeship provision, whilst it's financially attractive, although shouldn't be the only reason for people engaging on programs. The first reason I would always question is the business benefit. So you want to develop your people, you want to progress your people, you want to see succession planning through the ranks into junior, middle management, senior management. You want to keep people in your business.
It's an investment into your people and business.
Exactly,
Isn't it?
It's not the expense that some people would suggest. It's an investment, and particularly now with those under 25, where there's no national insurance contributions, whilst they're on an apprenticeship program, is sufficient enough to sort of negate any conversation around national insurance rises and cost of recruitment and stuff. We could argue that one all day, every day. We can make it extremely financially attractive. However, the key driver needs to be that the operator has the desire to develop his or her staff and to look at sort of rewarding his or her committed staff and to progress within the industry. Yes, they may leave. Our stats suggest that those on apprenticeship programs stay sort of 8% stay longer than others. In fact, I think the figures are better than that, so correct me for misquoting. However, as an operator myself, I still bump into sort of colleagues I employed some years ago because I still live in the vicinity where my pubs were, and they celebrate that early career opportunity that we afforded them. They may not all be working in hospitality, but they accredit their early years working in our pubs as to help them with social confidence, with communication skills, listening skills particularly, as well as sort of developing their product knowledge. I use four key metrics that I have been doing for many years when sort of talking about the benefits of apprenticeship program. If you are promoting a sort of training and development programs within your recruitment strategy, apprenticeships be just one of those, not exclusively, but just be one of those. You're going to get better people joining you. You're going to get people that aspire to develop themselves. You're also going to keep people longer because people feel committed. They feel the loyalty increases exponentially. But you've got a better workforce. Customer satisfaction scores increase as a result, because if we're working together and I'm enlightening you as to increase preferred service styles or a better sort of product knowledge, then all of a sudden your communication with your customers and your guests takes a different level. Customers repeat, footfall improves, repeat custom goes through the roof, because all of a sudden they're engaging in conversation with a more informed member of the team. Productivity, therefore, is the third. Productivity goes up as a result, and then ultimately that bottom line, that profitability, increases. So back to your point, it's an investment in your people, not an expense. Interestingly, a number of conversations we're having just recently with pubs and bars who I understand, are working with depleted teams, shortened teams, smaller teams. They've lost people through either financial necessity. They've been unable or unwilling to recruit because of financial constraints. And we can talk about the pressures of rates and VAT and all the other stuff that I'm well aware of living in the world that I do. And that depleted team sometimes impacts on the service offer of that premise. So food might be reduced, the days that Foods offers, might be reduced. They may not do so many event nights. They may have to look at sort of trimming back some of the service offers. However, you're looking at that retained workforce, the loyalty's there, the commitment's there. If we look at multi-skilling them, there's some great examples of where we have sort of colleagues at work bar working other areas of the business. Might be on the kitchen pass, might be in housekeeping, might be in reception, it might be in events, it could be a plethora of different outcomes. But if you've got a smaller team, retained team, but better skilled, then productivity can still be aligned to what it was when you were working with a full workforce.
Making your smaller team a jack of all trades.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of works better than a master of one.
Yeah, that's dead right. But also from the employee's point of view, from the team member's point of view, it's a little bit more interesting as well.
It is, yeah.
A little bit more varied, a little bit more challenging. I mean, you may have a preferred particular role within the business.
Yes.
But it's nice to be, a little, little different. What I'm doing today, and I'm working in the kitchen, or we've got an event, or I'm on the wedding planning team, or whatever it may be. That's interesting.
I do think we hear more often from the new workforce that they prefer jobs that are more varied, that aren't just the same day to day. So having maybe not every day being so different, but having the opportunity to jump around.
You and I do, in our day to day. If it wasn't varied, I'm not saying
boring.
It was dull. Your words, not mine. In case anyone's listening. But to keep it varied, keep it interesting, keep it exciting, keep it vibrant, because you may fall into a particular role that you wouldn't have imagined being your forte. We've had bartenders become fantastic chefs. We've had chefs, sort of running breweries. We've had brewers becoming great publicans. I mean, those case studies aren't unique to our organisation, but I hear them on a day-to-day basis. And people need to understand that, their career isn't as sort of mapped out as perhaps they would have feared it is.
There's a lot more sidestepping than just going straight up the ladder.
I mean, how broad is this sector really? We talk about hospitality, we talk about culinary, we talk about brewing, we talk about, logistics, marketing, finance, accounts, HR, people. There's opportunities within this industry that aren't sort of limited to bartendering or, event working.
So with these new incentives for apprenticeships, we can now imagine that there's going to be a lot more people starting apprenticeships and potentially a lot more publicans who have never had a staff member be on an apprenticeship. What advice would you give them? Where do they need to start for someone who's brand new to this world?
Okay, well, BII for a start. I mean, as a sort of trusted partner, trusted supplier of BII, we very sort of proudly work in association with the BII and other sort of trade bodies as well. If you can't find me on LinkedIn or any of my colleagues or my number in the social media somewhere, then get in touch with BII. We'll be happy to sort of pick up that conversation. I mean, and that first conversation is often the most difficult one, because you don't really know what questions you ask.
Yeah.
I've been in the industry long enough. I'll answer the questions before you ask them because I know what's coming.
Yeah.
We've got a plethora of literature that we can make available. We've got all sorts of leaflets and flyers that cut through the chaff and just sort of present the program, facts and all. Happily share that. But yeah, just give us a buzz. A conversation is cheap. And the importance of that conversation is that there's no commitment to anything, because we all want to make sure that any individual coming onto an apprenticeship program is aware of what's expected of them, is aware of the timescale. It might be 8 months, might be 12 months, might be 18 months. We don't want no secrets or no surprises on that journey. What we all want to make sure is the individual is enthusiastically eager to progress, within their own capabilities. And that, if you've got individuals in your business, I mean, talking there to the industry, if you've got people in your business that you think, blooming good they are, I don't want to lose them, have a conversation. How can I help you develop? Is there more I can do as a publican or more I can do as an operator to develop you? Because trust me, there's not many younger people, I say younger people who, from a baby boomer that I am, those 16 to 24-year-olds, not wanting to sort of categorise or limit the audience. But those younger people, there's not many that aren't sort of aspiring or aspire to develop themselves further.
Yeah.
You're kidding yourself if you don't think they're enthusiastic, they're motivated, and, they've got that sort of appetite for growth and personal development. Because if you assume they don't, then unfortunately
you don't know them as well.
Other people may see those,
Yeah.
that skill set within them. So talk to them, ask them about, what their development plan is going to be. If you haven't got a structured program of learning in your business, that's fine. 90% of the businesses don't. But talk to an organisation like us. Talk to us, because we can be your training department in effect, and we can come and just sort of present and sort of lay out one or two opportunities that you may not have already considered. We can identify some of the financial incentives that you would have thought, or you perhaps naively thought weren't available to you, and then put together a program that you go, that sounds all right, or not just yet. Let's talk about it when things sort of level out a bit. But there's no better time. I'm not here to sort of answer all the issues that are facing the industry. I sort of shed a tear, as do sort of many of us, as to the battles that these guys are going through at the moment. I thought it hard back in the 80s and 90s when I was running my pub, but nowhere close to some of the challenges that are facing today. But I strongly believe, being respectful and aware of the industry that I am, I strongly believe that training development, apprenticeships, a number of other different sort of short course outcomes can be part of the solution to at least address one of the key issues, or one of the key sort of concerns, which was always about, how do I keep my good staff? If I'm going to stand any chance of being successful or still being in business here, I'm more reliant on my team now than ever I was. So,
and obviously with all these positive changes to apprenticeships last year, this year, where do you see apprenticeships being in the next 3 to 5 years?
God, they're not going away. It's going to be standard. It's going to be. I think there's no better time for apprenticeships. The term has some historic sort of assumptions aligned to it, but that's not necessarily from the younger demographics now. I think apprenticeships, people see that as an opportunity, to learn and develop whilst in employment, and to be as sort of career motivated as ever they have been. I mean, the flexibilities are here now. Reduced length of stay, 12 months to 8 months,
Yeah.
financial incentives, recruiting a 16 to 18-year-old £1,000, recruiting someone onto a foundation programme and another £3,000 for the operator. This is
Yeah.
for the publican, and notwithstanding that £2,000 for other programmes, no fee, no cost to the business operator if the apprentice is under the age of 25. I'm not excluding anyone over the 25 because some great successes there. However, we can see why these financial incentives are coming from government to get young people into work. So that works. The flexibility and the alignment of the programs, I'll always say, a learning journey aligned to a career pathway makes perfect sense. Team member level 2 to a team role, supervisor level 3 to a supervisor or team leader in the business, level 4 hospitality manager aligned to a general manager or publican, and we can continue to go on. Whilst ever there's organisations like ours, me and my other colleagues, working with education, working with educational institutions, working with industry, we can ensure that the programmes are fit for purpose. They remain as flexible as they need to be, but also aware of the changes and some of the challenges that are facing industry to ensure that we are adaptable and flexible enough to meet those, as opposed to being 20 minutes behind, as historically was the case.
Yeah. Now, talking about the apprenticeships themselves, what would you say a good apprenticeship looks like versus a bad apprenticeship?
A good apprenticeship or a good apprentice feels like part of the job. So it's no different to doing the job, but with some external support, external direction and external assessment. A bad apprenticeship feels like homework that you didn't ask for. And I think that's the difference. There are many providers out there. We like to class ourselves in that good section because we understand the industry, we understand the sector, and we appreciate the challenges. So we make sure it's as streamlined and integrated into the job and the role as possible. And that'd be about it, I think.
How would you avoid a bad apprenticeship then?
I'd ask around. I'd speak to industry because, there's a number of providers out there. If you're not sure, it's like with picking any supplier. You've got to have that relationship with them. Yeah, research them. Look at, are they award winning? Have they got, great levels of employer feedback and apprenticeship feedback like we have? All our statistics are sort of government shared. So it's not hard for you to, equate one against the other. And I would suggest you do that. I can sit here and say that because I'm confident that our rates are up there, if not, not the best. But yeah, ask around. Don't take my word for it, as much as I'm an honest, sort of straightforward talking sort of guy. But ask around, and that will give you an idea of can you work with this organisation, because you're going to be working with us for a good period of time. It becomes part of your team. Some of the great success is when we see apprentices go through to NEETers, and their trainer, one of my colleagues, has become so much part of that team that they come and celebrate the success like it was one of their own. That to me is the sign of success that we proudly celebrate, and that's what you should look for.
And I know you've mentioned this a little bit, but why do you think the next generation should seriously consider a career, an apprentice training, developing themselves in the pub trade?
You know what? The events we all go to, and we sit with like-minded people, and this is the biggest question. The duty of the responsibility we all have, the duty of care we have, and the obligation we have is to take that message out there externally. I talk to many parent groups, I talk to many sort of college leaver groups, consortiums, and the message to me is quite clear. This industry, this sector, licensed trade, let's talk licensed trade in particular, there is no more vibrant, sociable and exciting industry out there. There's no sector that I know, and we, within our organisation, we work across health and social care, we work across funeral, we work across early years, management, many different sectors. And I would argue, and my colleagues don't often disagree, that there's no industry like licensed retail, licensed trade, hospitality, that progresses enthusiastic self-motivated, aspirational individuals like this industry does, to a point where in their early 20s they can be earning significant salaries, they can have career opportunities that are ahead of them, they will be the most sought after individuals from other competitors, and it's a career and industry you can take worldwide. If for some reason you don't stay in the sector, the skills and the abilities that you generate often go unaccredited or uncertificated, which is confidence, which is communication skills.
A lot of transferable skills, isn't it?
The transferable skills. There's not many industries that won't take you, with open arms. So, don't just think of this trade historically as perhaps it's some of the stigma reputation has. Think of it as a vibrant, growing. There's still phenomenal businesses out there that are struggling, but there's businesses out there that present a career opportunity for individuals looking to career change, first job. There's no better sociable, family oriented sector that I've been aware of yet. There's many comparisons, but nothing's come close. But I'm biased. Probably come through my blood.
And finally, where can, if a publican's listening or someone who's interested in having an apprenticeship, where can they find HIT training and reach out to you guys for?
Okay, we're all over social media. We're online. They can certainly contact us through BII and through Workforce. There's not many events that we don't go to. One of the joys of my particular role, they can find my details personally. I mean, HIT training, we're part of the Opportunity Provider Group, so we're one sort of cog in a sort of big organisation, but we're England wide. We work in collaboration with providers in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. So there's not many that aren't aware of us. If it's your first time talking about apprenticeships, then I'll happily introduce you to other organisations that have enjoyed some success with us, because there's no better recommendation than talking to like-minded organisations, because you get the truth from them. Short of giving my phone number out, which I'm tempted not to do particularly, but you can find us online, hittraining.co.uk.
Perfect, thank you, and thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.